trust in who's trying to really infringe on your Second Amendment rights. And it's a government right now that I just don't trust.
We've already had some discussion of the state budget and the money that was transferred from the Alabama Trust Fund. I'm curious, when that came up last year, for election, there was a lot of debate, and it didn't necessarily fall along party lines for those who were for or against it. I'd like to know, tell us how you voted on that issue and why.
I voted for the removal of money from the Alabama Trust Fund, and I'll tell you why. My wife and I maintain small savings, and when it gets real rainy, we might have to dip into that. In fact, we're dipping right now because we had some problems with a sewer problem in our basement. We're torn all that out, so we're dipping into that saving right now. But this was a time, and you say, well, why not save it for a rainy day? Hey, we were in a rainy day. The revenue from the state was reduced because of the economy. It was reduced because of the Gulf problem that was down there. There were a number of reasons that the revenues in the state of Alabama were reduced. And I voted for it because we need to fund those things that are necessary. And we need to fund our law enforcement. We need to fund our prison system. We need to fund those things. We need to keep those things afloat. And I voted for it, but I really believe that it was the right thing to do at the time.
I'd like for you to read the question one more time, please.
On the transfer of the $437 million from the Alabama Trust Fund last year, how did you vote on that issue and why?
I voted yes, and I'm going to tell you why. It's not been publicized too much, but right now the retirement system of Alabama, we're having to spend $780 million out of the general fund budget to keep it floating. That's all of our retirees, from our teachers, law enforcement, state workers, and everything. It was important to keep that money flow going to them. So to keep a budget going, that's why I voted to do that, because those people had paid into that fund. They deserve that retirement that they paid into. And that's one of the issues I talked about earlier, is we need the state, we got to get our own self in order. Because right now, the RSA is not getting a return for their money that they should be getting to help pay for retirees that's already retired. If we don't do something now to shore it up, then in the future, our retirement system for all of our educators and everybody's going to be in trouble.
It was a real dilemma on how to vote on this. Again, you wanted to keep law enforcement, you wanted to keep government running, you wanted to keep services flowing, and RSA and all of that, you wanted that to be bolstered up and shored up, and you just didn't want to take any chances that anything would fail to happen like it was supposed to. But I voted against it, and there was one reason and one reason only, because there was no provision to pay it back. And it was a dilemma. My daughter-in-law's a school teacher, and I'm all about teachers and raises and all the benefits they get. They do so much for our children. But I had to vote against it because there was simply no provision to pay it back.
You know, that was a tough one. That was one of the toughest ones that we've, I guess, all faced in a long time. And we had agencies of our state government, just in organizations and business, and bringing the reasons for us to vote in favor of that. And I really, when I went to the polls that day, and Debbie and I have always helped for many years now, been poll officials at Fairview, at the town hall there, and some point, we have to, at some point, folks, we've got to reel in and make it to the point that some of these state agencies have got to be dealt with as far as overspending, and I could give you some examples that I know, but I couldn't, I had to change my mind when I kept seeing seniors come into the polls to vote on walkers and with oxygen tanks that were scared to death that their benefits would be ended if that didn't pass. So I guess I got touched a little bit with that.
Do you support home rule for local governments? And would you also favor a 5-member county commission to give greater representation in Fulton County?
Home rule is where the legislature gives county commission governments an opportunity to make a lot of their own laws that state legislature should be making. I think laws like that, putting in a 3 or 5 person hand, should not happen. But there are some cases where you could give some leniency in home rule, like to road departments, it would help them in those aspects. But as far as total home rule for, and I think that's your question, total home rule for a county commissioner governor, I'm not in favor of it, because that's why you elect legislatures to make those rules. So putting them in the hands of the local people, I'd be concerned about them having the availability to raise taxes without the vote of people, without the vote of the people. So I would be opposed against home rule. And the next question was changing our current county commission from 3 to 5. I've really not studied that to have a good answer to that. I think that should be put before the vote of the people of Coleman County and let them decide if 3 or 5 would be the best solution.
I believe the rights and freedoms of the people of this state and the broader public interest are protected by opposing any attempt to allow the state to give up its responsibilities and powers to a county or local units of government. We cannot have 67 county states in the state of Alabama. It would be just very easy for a 3 or 5 member county commission to come under the influence of special interest and to push a certain agenda. And what can seem is such a benign, innocent decision can have such ramifications because it affects people's lives. I keep hearing about an example of limited home rule in the state of Florida, but nobody's given me that example. So, you know, limited home rule, what is that? I don't know what that is. But if we had home rule, that's it. If the state legislature decided that home rule rules, that's it. The average citizen would have no recourse. You couldn't take it higher. The state legislature serves as a check and balance system for the average citizen. You can go to Montgomery and request public hearings, and your voice can be heard in Montgomery in those committee hearings. So as far as I know and I'm aware of, I would be against home rule.
You know, I like dealing with things on the local level. I've always been in local government. However, with that said, I think we have to be careful about that, and I don't want to, I just think we really need to be careful because we're opening the door to taxation. And I just don't think we just can't keep raising taxes. I mean, we just can't keep raising taxes. It's that simple. So I'd have to be, I would have to be very, I'd have to say I want to be very careful about that. As far as a 5-member commission, you know, adding two more commissioners to the commission, that may sound good. It may have some good points, and it probably does. But we're also, when we do that, we're adding more expenses. Each commissioner has to have a staff, has to have a way to operate, and so basically that would just almost be doubling the cost of operations to add a 5-member commission. So I'm not saying I wouldn't, address the 5-member commission thing first, if you will, and I too think that that is something, if we look at that, it needs to be a vote of the people to go to the 5-member commission rather than 3-member commission. On the item of home rule, I am in favor of people close to our voting base being able to make some decisions. As a school board member, when I served as a school board member, if a parent called me with a complaint, I had 2 questions. The first question was, have you talked to the teacher? And have you talked to the principal? And if they say no, I say, I'll talk to you after you've talked to the teacher and after you've talked to the principal. And you say, well, that's kind of skirting your responsibility. The principal and the teacher are there for that purpose. They're there to deal with those things. They know both sides of it when it gets there. And so in our, in talking about home rule, I think we have local commissions, and you do have a recourse on these local commissions and these local mayors and councils. You have a recourse because every 4 years you vote on that. And so I lean toward small government, lean toward home rule, but with some limitations there. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to our closing statements. Again, each person will have 2 minutes to make their statement, and the order in which we will proceed was determined by our drawing ahead of time. So we will start with Mr. Shea.
Well, I want to thank the Chamber and the Coleman Times and all of you. I appreciate all of you coming. It's good to see folks interested in our government, interested in what candidates have to say, and participating in our wonderful democracy as Americans. So I thank you for coming. In closing remarks, I want to say I am pro-life, pro-family, patriotic, pro-business, including agribusiness. These other good folks are too. I live on a farm. These other good folks do too. I believe strongly that we ought to have the right to own a gun and defend ourselves and our families and hunt and fish if we want to. And you heard these folks are too. There's one important difference though. I've been going to Montgomery and working on getting things through the legislature to help our community since I was 20 years old. And I'd like to hear you folks talk about me being too young to run again, but you're not so worried about that here in this campaign. Montgomery and the legislature is a complicated process. And we need to get our fair share in District 11. This session is almost over, or will be almost over when this election is settled. The term for this seat will be almost over when this election is settled. We'll have only one more one more year when this election settles. Our district needs a legislator who can hit the ground running on day one. And as far as trust, for a 1-mile stretch by my house, every one of my neighbors has a Randall Shedd sign in their yard, 100%. And I'm very proud of that because my neighbors are the only ones that I've asked to endorse me, and 100% of them did. And I ask for your vote and support on Tuesday, February 12th, 1 week from today. Thank you.
First, I'd like to applaud the Chamber of Commerce, the mayors of Coleman and Good Hope, the county commission, the city council, and our local legislative delegation on their concerted effort for their announcement that they announced yesterday with I-65 and 222 interchange. That is huge, and I applaud them for that. These my opponents have wonderful qualifications. They're good Christian people. You know, and I believe that. This race is really not about us. This race is about you and your representation in Montgomery. It's about who will represent you. And I am Danny Aldridge, and I'm running for the State House of Representatives, District 11. I've served as a teacher, a principal, a career tech director, and a school board member. And I've been all about building relationships with people. I've worked with the chamber. I've worked with different industry here in Coleman County when I was an agribusiness teacher. I worked with Ray Howe. I worked with McGriff Tire. I worked with what was Nicholson File, and one of the managers there was one of my former students. All that's about building relationships, and I believe that we can build relationships and work out this together. And I really want to work with our local legislation and work on situations and things that affect District 11 of the House of Representatives. Thank you.
I'd also like to thank the Chamber of Commerce and Coleman Times for hosting this, and I want to thank you all for coming and showing interest in this race. I think it's important that we all go vote on February the 12th. The last 16 years of my life, I've been blessed to work for a group of people in the town of South Alabama with the mayor and council that believe in God and believe in their town. I know my mayor's sitting here today, and my vice mayor, and I want to thank you for that support. I want to share with you something. In 16 years, the town of South Alabama has brought in $3,926,000 in grants and support. In 16 years. And some of the people that helped bring that money here in this room today, and I want to thank you for that, being able to work side by side with you. I feel like in 16 years experience working for the town, I have the knowledge and the skills to help Coleman, Morgan, and Blount County with going and helping them get money for local projects. I feel like I can work well with the delegation from Coleman County and the delegation in Montgomery, and also our delegation in Washington, D.C. to help projects. But we've talked about projects here today, but I'm going to leave you with this. I said this earlier. I want to go to Montgomery to change Washington, D.C. through the state of Alabama. Thank you.
I am not a politician. I felt compelled to engage in government. I'm a true conservative woman, and I have and I will stand for due process, accountability in government, smaller taxes, and the rights of citizens. I am the only Republican candidate from the world of business. Number one, I'm a farmer, but I've also built coalitions and created jobs from scratch, from nothing. I understand government does not create jobs. People create jobs. People who are willing to take a risk, entrepreneurs. As a medical provider, I understand firsthand the Medicare, Medicaid, and healthcare crisis facing our citizens. And I'm not a teacher, but I have supported and participated in vocational education at the high school level and the post-secondary level. I strongly support the junior college system of Alabama. And to give back to my community, for 19 years, I supplied health care at no cost to thousands of students from the 7th grade to the 12th grade in 3 counties. As a farming partner, I'm the only candidate that's an advocate for the #1 industry in District 11 and the state of Alabama, which is agriculture. I have been endorsed by the Alabama Farmers Federation, and last Friday I was endorsed by the Alabama Forestry Association. If I'm elected, I will do my best to protect and improve the lives of the citizens of District 11 and just be the representative that you deserve. I ask for your support and your vote on February 12th to vote for Lydia Haynes, House District 11.
Thank you to each of our candidates for being here today. Thank you for taking the time to come share